and he knows that's how I feel. There are new approaches to accountability. You can see them up here. I'm not going to read the slide because I want to move on. There are key elements to a really good accountability system. Does not focus on shame and labeling. It focuses on the notion of continuous improvement. And I think that's the theme that we want to see in this newest reauthorization of ESSA, and that is this notion of continuous improvement. Each one of us in our lives, each day when we wake up, it's a day to continuously improve. It's a natural part of the human soul. And I really should take a second, I meant to do this earlier, and talk about how this law came to be. I'm not sure everyone knows that the original law was signed by Lyndon Johnson in 1965 in front of the one-room schoolhouse that he attended as a young student. And he did come from really seriously poor environment, and he saw this law as the opportunity to level the playing field for poor children. The one thing that happened with the law that's a bit odd, although there are other laws that follow the same pattern, the law gets reauthorized every 7 years, which means that each president, who's a sitting president, gets to put his or her stamp on the law. And so this one was not reauthorized for 10 years because it was the year 2001, and there was so much debate over what this law should look like. It took us to 2015 for a bipartisan group to reauthorize the law that is now called Every Student Succeeds Act. And again, it is definitely a bipartisan law, and that's always a value to a law when it's authorized, because it means that the funding for the law will likely, in many instances, move through Congress very rapidly, because everyone supported the law. So this new law requires many things. Yes, it does continue the testing in grades 3 through 8. It does continue the testing in math and in English language arts, and I will come back to that shortly. It does continue an assessment of our new English language learners, the largest growing group in our public schools. And a bit of a postscript, when I spent my almost 4 years in Washington, I had the wonderful opportunity to travel around the world to represent the country, to visit school systems. This is the only country where kids don't speak at least 2 languages. The only country. The minimum of 2 languages. In some places, for example, in Cairo, when I met with young students, 3 languages, English, Arabic, and French. And those were the languages that they had to demonstrate proficiency for in order to move on in their grade level system. So here's our hope, that we're going to catch up, and we're beginning to understand that our students, our young people, will live on a planet in a country. And that's going to require that they're able to communicate with other young people in a language that may not be English. The first step towards that is the seal of biliteracy, and I don't know if people are familiar with that, but there's a new seal we're now applying to students' high school diplomas, and I'm sure there'll be some students here who'll be eligible for them. Imagine showing a diploma to an employer or a college that has a raised seal on it saying, "We certify that this student is bilingual," and it's called the seal of biliteracy. My only challenge is that right now the students most likely to receive those seals are kids who came to us already speaking a second language. When we are able to begin to award those seals in large numbers to children who were born into English-speaking families, we will finally become a bilingual country. And that does not in any way diminish who we are as Americans. It recognizes that we live on a planet with millions of people, some of whom don't speak English. And I'm sure you've had this experience if you had a chance to travel. I remember being introduced by a member of the Japanese consulate, and the only words I understood was my name because I didn't speak the language, so I did not know what he was saying. That's unfortunate. It really is unfortunate. We really do need to understand, at least at some level, the languages of the countries that we often interact with. So here are some of the priorities in this new law: challenging standards, new methodologies, excellent educators, English language learners. I'm going to come back to each of these and you can read this. I don't need to read the slide. But learning is really complex. Let's just talk about this a little bit. So assessments should be also. What research identifies as a determinant of quality schools is a well-rounded curriculum, inclusive of both academic and critical thinking skills, where students get the opportunity to solve problems creatively, work with their peers, experience both teacher and student-centered learning experiences. That level of collaboration is a career-ready skill, and it is critical thinking and problem solving. Also, along with the curriculum, if we're doing this really well, we're teaching children to be kind, to love, to learn, to be curious, to question, to become caring, tolerant people. The search to create, discover, reveal, and share is an unending journey that occurs in the best of our schools. The child immersed in beautiful poetry, the student acquiring the skill of using a watercolor brush, the rendering of a museum-quality display of artifacts, scientific experiments, research papers, debates, and discussions centered on classic literature are all the means through which students explore and discover ideas. Unpacking the essential elements of contemporary issues and having students learn to take responsibility for their actions coalesce to teach valuable lessons that extend well beyond the school walls. Students who present their learning before a panel of adjudicators, which actually takes place in some schools, get so immersed in the work they can lose track of time. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to represent the Board of Regents at the installation and inauguration of the 13th president of Manhattanville College. He gave a really powerful speech, and I know it's going to be posted at some point on the Manhattanville website, and I would encourage you all to read it, because he's bringing some revolutionary thinking to the concept of liberal arts. And he basically is saying, connect the dots. Liberal arts connects the dots for our children as they move through life. Because we cannot define or describe the world that they're going to grow up in, so we need to figure out how to help them connect those dots as they unfold. And he talks a lot about equity and resources and destinations. And I use the term journey a lot. Yesterday he taught me that when you're on a journey, there are destinations all along the way. So going forward, I'm always going to talk about journeys and destinations. And I do encourage you to read that speech. So one of the other pieces that we talked about as we look at ESSAs, the support for improving schools. Now, I don't think you have up here anywhere near the kinds of issues that high poverty schools have. But that doesn't mean that all of your children are performing at the highest of levels, and all kids can perform at higher levels than they currently may be performing at. But I think you would want to recognize and understand that where there is a need for improvement, you can be a voice for improving those schools for children who are having difficult times. And that support for improvement means we have to first listen to what parents and educators say, what is best for our children. No one knows better than parents, teachers, administrators, and school board members what works in schools and classrooms. It also means if we're going to improve our schools on a continuous cycle, it also means we can no longer rush into policy decisions, which is what happened. Serious issues have serious consequences. So we must be deliberative in the actions we take. That means not only engaging with parents and educators, but also taking the time and effort to review the best research available. So now we're going to talk about what I consider to be a major issue, and I'm going to come back to it when I have a couple of recommendations I'd like you to consider. Professional capacity building. Hopefully everyone in this room grew up with teachers that had a lasting impression on their lives.